lovely day!
Hey guys, Jim here. Welcome in once again. Today I have two of QSP's newest models, the Gorilla and the Otter. Now the Gorilla in black micarta is $65, while the Otter in its foil-infused carbon fiber is going to be $114.80. What an oddly specific number. Now you can order either of these or any other QSP from them directly or through a number of their authorized dealers. You want to check out QSPknife.com if you'd like to order them directly. Now, I've never paid too much attention to the naming of the models before, but as I see more and more after the penguin, canary, and now these two, the pattern is obvious and clear. They lean into using animal names pretty heavily. Now, I've noticed this with a few Chinese companies, especially in the EDC space. We kind of just lay this out here. These are some of the things that you'll be getting with all of your purchases. You'll always get a couple of stickers, and they're pretty darn cool stickers as well. I always like the little penguin sticker. That always makes me smile. And then you get a spec card that shows you all of the important things like the overall length, blade length, and all that kind of good stuff. Let me get these out of the way. Now, when we're talking about EDC space, we're talking about products that are either considered weapons or are weapon accessories as defined by whatever agencies there are that happen to be around the world that define these things. When that's the case, these Chinese brands tend to kind of stay far away from product names that directly indicate this. Like it's going to set off some sort of trigger or something. Like there's been a huge rash of low-priced red dot optics coming into the U.S. market over the last several years. And those use animal names, nature names like oak and stuff like that. I know there's a red dot optic called the Otter. I know there's one called the, not the big oak, something oak. Anyway, it doesn't really mean anything. It's just something that I've noticed, and now I kind of can't unsee it. It's like they're afraid to use some direct product names that may point it in some direction. Because as we always have to constantly defend here in the U.S., especially when we're dealing with social media companies like Instagram and YouTube and Facebook and all that with their censorship and shadow banning, we always have to defend the photos we post of our knives and go, they're tools. They're not weapons, they're tools. They're only a weapon if somebody decides to use it as a weapon, like a hammer or a baseball bat. Those are not weapons, but they can certainly be used as weapons, and that's what we constantly have to say about our knives. I don't think that argument holds any weight any longer in the UK, because you pretty much can't have a knife of any sort in the UK, and that's what happens when you start giving up some rights. They don't really have rights like we do. But when you let the government step into certain things, they'll take everything from you, is the point that I'm trying to make. Anyway, back to knives. Normally, I would do a separate video for each of these knives, but I don't feel that there is enough substance to them individually to warrant the additional time for you to watch, the time and work for me to video and edit the video and then upload. QSP does a phenomenal job at OEM work for a lot of cool brands like EMP EDC. These are still among my favorite knives in my collection over the past few years. And they do really well with making clean, basic folders at very low prices for their own brand. The Canary here is a great example of that. And each of those obviously warranted their own videos. This is a higher priced product, a more premium product that they make for EMP EDC. And it really, you can feel it, you can see it. It's a completely different kind of product. They're not trying to sell this for under $100. These are in that mid to high $300 range. Whereas something like the Canary, the Otter, the Gorilla, the friggin' spider monkey, the tarantula, I don't know, I'm just thinking of different animal names. All of those are really meant to be very affordable knives and hit a certain price point. I'm just going to go ahead and get that one ready because we're going to show that one here in a second. So compared to the ever popular Penguin or the Canary here, some of their stuff can be a little bit on the bland side, a little bit uninspired, somewhat pedestrian designs, really. And that's where I would place both of these designs right here, the Otter and the Gorilla. Now let's go quickly through the high and low points of each, and I don't really want to make this any longer than it needs to be. It's already been over 6 minutes as it is. Firstly, if you're looking for a good basic folder for EDC or actual hard use, and you don't feel you need to pay the price for super steels or unique mechanics or unique locking mechanisms or anything like that, the Gorilla is probably going to serve you very, very well. Now, if you're one to actively select an option from any brand in micarta, then you probably don't have very discerning taste as it is, so this knife will likely be great for you. It's bare bone basic, however, while not as lovable as the Penguin, it's a more robust, tougher knife that feels like it can take some abuse. This would be a reasonable, low-cost alternative for most Benchmades and Spydercos, or kind of a lateral financial move from maybe a CRKT. And while they're about equal quality, I think that you're going to probably enjoy the QSP a little bit more because there's something that's different about it than your basic CRKT. And while CRKT still does extremely well for sales numbers, we know that there's a huge market for this price range and this type of style of knife where it's not, fancy materials, it's not crazy super steels, it's not crazy high Rockwell hardness. It's just good performance in a solid built knife in a basic design that most everybody can find agreeable. It's like today I'm wearing a G-Shock. I'm not wearing a $5,000 Breitling or a $10,000 Panerai. It's doing what I want it to do for today. It fits in with how I'm dressed. It fits in with the activities I have planned for the day. And I don't need anything fancier. I can justify the cost differences between them, just like I can between many of the knives. But there are just some days you don't really need to be over the top, or you don't need a specific feature or finish or a particular aesthetic. That something a little bit more basic is exactly what you need. So I'm not talking down about it. I'm just giving you that realistic, comparison. While this is a fine knife, I don't want you to watch the video and go, man, Jim really loves this thing. He's going nuts. I need to get one in my hands immediately. And then you get it and go, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not anything great. I just want to set you up for a reasonable expectation of what this really is. Now here you've got a steel liner lock with a steel pocket clip, no expensive titanium on this knife. So it is going to be a tad heavier and you'll lose out on the anti-corrosive properties of tie, but the cost is tremendously lower as well. So just take care of it so that you can, offset that financial cost. Realize it could take a little bit more work. You want to, make sure that you're properly treating the pocket clip like you would the blade. You don't leave it wet. You don't sweat all over it and then just put it away at the end of the day. You clean it off, get the salty sweat off there or salty seawater or whatever it happens to be. Maybe use some EDCI or something to help protect it from rusting or corroding. And that's really it. You're not just going to chuck it and toss it like you would something made of titanium that physically cannot rust or corrode. So you got a 14C28 end blade, which is actually a pretty good steel for a budget Chinese steel. It holds its edge pretty darn well. I think that most people that have a knife in 14C28N would tell you the same thing, that you don't really have to worry about resharpening it very often. You can use it and abuse it, and it's going to perform well for, normal, regular, everyday folder activities. I wouldn't go batoning with this thing. I wouldn't go cutting into mystery boxes that could have random staples in it or something like that, because you could chip or damage the edge a lot more easily than you could something that's maybe of a higher quality with probably even a better heat treat. So keep that in mind. It is riding on ceramic bearings, so it's actually really smooth. When you go to close this, whether you're closing it, like a normal person like this, or like a knife tuber, where you've got to do the gravity drop so people can see if it's smooth or not. However you choose to close it, you're going to realize, wow, this thing feels really, really good. It's got a wonderfully smooth operation. And it weighs in at only 4.37 ounces. Well, I say only, but for a knife this size, that is kind of a tad hefty. So keep that in mind too. Again, getting into a titanium knife, it's going to be lighter weight. You don't really have that much to worry about. This steel liner, these are full-length liners, by the way, that is going to add some weight. They did reduce as much as they could by machining out the frame and skeletonizing it completely. So yeah, it could be a lot heavier. Now, they don't list what material the backspacer is made of, so I'm not even going to venture a guess. It could be titanium, it could be steel. It's a mystery. Anyway, here are the rest of the specs. So you've got a steel liner lock flipper in micarta, overall length of 7.875 inches, blade length of 3.375 inches, and a closed length of 4.5 inches. Not exciting, but functional, and that may well be exactly what you're in the mood for. Sometimes you need an F-150, not a Mustang, am I right? Now, while I personally despise the look and the feel of micarta, a lot of people are going to like it. A lot of people are going to find it to be very, very useful for their needs. They did a really good job of finishing it. There's no raggedy edges. As we take a look around this, I'll give you a close-up. There's no raggedy edges going around it. There's no rough finishing. They did a very, very good job of cutting and grinding this stuff, however it is that they're doing it, whether they're cutting it all with lasers or with CNC or whatever it is that they're doing. It's nice and clean. They're rounding it and they're beveling it, and they're finishing the edges properly so it actually feels pretty good. They did a slick job with it. A little bit too slick for my liking. It is very, very smooth, almost feels slippery. So again, but I'm just not a micarta person. I do not like micarta from any brand. This could be a $1,000 custom in a canvas or denim, in this case, micarta, and I'm going to hate the material. I'm going to hate how it looks. It looks cheap. I'm going to hate how it feels. I don't like the texture of it. I really, really, really don't. Never have. So that's not a QSP thing. That's a personal thing for me with micarta. Now the flipping action, as I mentioned before, everything is really, really smooth, but the flipping action itself, I do kind of wish it had a little bit stronger of a detent. And I think this is a direct result of the liner lock pressure. The pressure is not very stiff on the lock, so it's not really, forcing the detent into the detent hole. So I think it's more about the lock strength than it is the placement of the detent ball. It was likely weakened in order to facilitate an easier opening from the blade window like that. Because a lot of people are going to have that preference where they're going to want to flick it, or they're going to want to slow roll it, or they're going to want to thumb flick it. And you could do all of that. And that's going to be a big feature for a lot of people, is the multiple methods of deployment. Now, the clip, oh man, the clip is tight. Trying to pry this open is as tough as trying to pry the crack pipe out of Hunter Biden's grasp. It is really, really, really snug. So it's going to hold in the pocket really well. You don't have to worry about that. And it's got a pretty large area of contact there between the clip and the body. So it's going to stay in your pocket, that's for sure. It may be a little forceful to try to get it in or out, but it's certainly going to do its job by holding itself in there. Now, let's move on to the Otter. Another steel liner lock. The Otter is much smaller and more discreet than the big old Gorilla. And the Gorilla is not huge or anything, but as you can see, there is a significant size difference between them, both in the length, in the width, and also in the thickness as well. So it is going to be a much easier knife to carry, especially if you're working in an office or any kind of non-permissive environment. This is going to be very discreet carry. It's very easy to hide in the pocket, and it's very, very tiny. Now realize the size before you go and buy one. It is small. However, here you have a few more premium upgrades over the Gorilla, for example, since I have them both out here at once. The upgraded S35 VN steel choice for the blade, the upgraded scale material in the aluminum foil infused carbon fiber, and the titanium pocket clip. Let's get a good look at that. Nicely milled, nicely beveled. It has a much more attractive look to it. And the retention is set better on this clip. While you still got good, strong retention, it doesn't feel like it's impossible to pry open. And being a milled clip, in my opinion, it has a lot more character than the stamped clip on the Gorilla. Now, that's an aesthetic preference. You don't really gain any major benefits by having this style of clip over this style of clip. As a matter of fact, utility-wise, most of the time, a stamped clip or just a bent clip is going to be easier to live with than a milled clip is. Sometimes a milled clip isn't done right, and there'll be a gap between the body of the knife and the clip, and you can tap it, and you can hear it slap it against the body. And when it's offset like that, then it could be too loose in the pocket. Milled clips are a pain in the butt to make, but if they're done right, they are pretty much the best choice, in my personal opinion, for utility and for aesthetics. Now, the scales feel more like plastic than carbon fiber. But yes, they are carbon fiber, and the silver topographical look that you've got kind of going on here, that's actually a silver aluminum foil that's basically pressed into the carbon fiber when the carbon fiber is being made. So it's always a sharp look. People love that look, whether it be the aluminum or the copper. And in the right light, the light just bounces off that shiny aluminum, and it looks really, really, really cool. Now, the machine ground blade bevels have that telltale, I don't know if I'm really going to be able to pick it up well here. There's a telltale rainbow kind of sheen, like a radiance that comes across the satin type finish. Think of looking at the playable surface on a compact disc on a CD, and how it kind of has that shiny, silvery, that moves to rainbow kind of sheen to it. That's exactly what these machine ground bevels do. And some people like that, some people don't. So keep that in mind. And the end of the pocket clip is a little bit pokey for my personal taste. But that's about it for the negatives, really. The ceramic bearings are doing a really good job of getting that blade open and closed quickly and smoothly. But keep in mind, this is a short and thin blade. So that means it's going to be very, very lightweight. So it's not going to be a mind-blowing flipper, but it does flip well. And even though the flipper tab appears to be too small to be useful, it actually works perfectly. They've got just the right amount of jimping on it. They've got just the right shape to it. And they have it set in just the right location in relation to the pivot and the detent, that it works really, really well. Now, it is going to be a light switch operation. You cannot push button it. So you're just going to be swiping down across it. And yeah, it's they did a good job on the flipping action on this. I like that. Now, here's the specs on the Otter. Let's get that out of the way. Overall length of 6.5 inches. Blade length, 2.7-inch S35 VN blade. They have the blade stock thickness listed as 3 millimeters thick. And the weight is an awesome 2.6 ounces. This weighs almost nothing. When this is in your pocket, it just disappears. You're hardly going to even know it's there. And because it's so short and because it's so narrow, you actually have some room in your pocket. There are times you're standing around, you're having a conversation with people, and you don't know what to do with your hands. So what do? You put your hands in your pocket. And there are some knives that we carry that there's not enough room in your pocket to comfortably put your hand in there without feeling the knife digging into the back of your hand and stuff. Maybe you're a little feminine and you like those skinny jeans. You ain't getting your hand in your pocket hardly at all anyway, but certainly not with a bigger, beefier knife. Something like this will work well for you. So if you're a little delicate and feminine, that's okay. Put those skinny jeans on and this will work out just fine. Anyway, that's my look at both the Otter and the Gorilla. It's kind of a big burly gorilla compared to that little Otter, isn't it? Anyway, there's a quick look at those two. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please subscribe if you're not subscribed to all three of my channels. My main channel, which is Jim Skelton Knives, then A to Z EDC, as well as Quick Cuts, Jim's Quick Cuts, my shorter, abbreviated reviews. And it depends on where you're watching this and how chopped up this video is, if you're watching it on that channel or my main channel. Remember, the main channel gives you the full-length video. This is probably going to end up being about 20 minutes on my regular channel, and this will be somewhere around the 5-minute mark on the Quick Cuts channel. So there you go. Anyway, I'll see you on the next video.